Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let me get my hat on, and let's knock this out. Alright, first question. How long till one is in a fasted state, and theoretically, shouldn't intermittent fasting pose a slight metabolic advantage, as every meal is kind of like a refeed of sorts? I don't really practice IF, but just theory crossed my mind. Alright, some problems with this theory. Alright, how long do you reach a fasted state? Usually when you've slept overnight with no food. When you wake up in the morning after usually at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, if you haven't eaten anything, you are fasted. And usually your body goes into a fasted state more quickly when you're sleeping. Now, people talking about refeeds. Why would it give you a metabolic advantage? Refeeds don't give you a metabolic advantage. Refeeds exist for the purpose of replenishing muscle glycogen and improving performance in the gym, as well as staving off muscle loss, because you've eaten an enormous amount of carbohydrates when you've previously been in a caloric deficit. You got to remember, refeeds are something people do when they're in a caloric deficit. All right, it's coming back and eating maintenance or higher calories or overfeeding carbohydrates after depletion for a while. That's what a refeed is. Fasting doesn't actually necessarily put you there, and I mean, when you think about it, using your logic, eating breakfast every day would be a refeed. Well, it is in a way, because if you get up and train fasted, your glycogen stores are lower, right? Even if you've been overeating, your glycogen stores are probably going to be lower in a fasted state. You're going to have reduced performance in the gym. So, I mean, your logic is right, but it really isn't at the same time. It's not the same as you're thinking of maybe with overfeeding when people have been in a caloric deficit for several days. That might be what you're thinking of. And people need to remember, being fasted is not the same as being in a prolonged caloric deficit in which you've depleted muscle glycogen to a very, very large extent. So maybe that's what you're thinking of the overfeeding and the issues with de novo lipogenesis, like being pretty much staved off and people not being able to gain any body fat from carbohydrate overfeeding for a day or so if they've been very depleted. But what we're talking about here, what you're saying basically is true for everyone, because we wake up fasted every single day, and if we eat breakfast, we replenish glycogen, we replenish glucose. And most people perform better in the gym if they've had breakfast. And there have been plenty of studies on that. We know that's the case. Training fasted usually results in less total work capacity. You can't train as hard or for as long. Pretty well understood. So yes, technically you're right in that it replicates a refeed to eat breakfast every day, but people who don't train fasted don't need to worry about this. All right, next question. I'm currently training full body 2 times a week, and since that's what I feel my schedule allows for at the moment, I am focusing on heavy compounds every session, but I feel that if I do the push press and the bench press in the same session, then I can't actually get the most out of each exercise, which leads to that I'm actually progressing slower on the list when I do them in the same session. What do you think? It's acceptable to split it up so I do each only once a week, or should I just suck it up and keep doing both of them on the same session and just start with the one I think is most important? You know what, brother? No, you need to do them in the same session, and here's the reason. You're only training twice a week, and you're doing full body twice a week. Your minimum baseline, I would say, for most people who aren't using hefty doses of drugs, if you want to get better at any given exercise, your bare minimum should be doing it twice a week. Irrespective of how advanced you are, and only twice a week works better for way more advanced lifters. Anyone who's not an advanced lifter usually does better performing an exercise 3 times a week, if not more. We could argue up to 6. Now, that being said, what I would generally recommend is don't worry about it. That's like basically saying if I do chin-ups, I'm not as good at curls afterwards. Well, of course not. The biceps are fatigued. You know what? You're also not good at curls if you've done another set of curls before doing those curls. So if you do 3 sets of curls, your next 3 sets of curls are going to have reduced performance also. So using that logic, there's no point in doing the later sets of curls, but they induce more metabolic fatigue. So if you're, say, doing the bench press, the push press is actually going to be a bigger exercise. I would generally recommend that you do the push press first, and then do your bench press after. Unless you're competing in powerlifting, the bench press is the least important of the 2 exercises. The push press has more muscle groups involved, it has more athleticism involved, more power involved. It's a more important exercise for general athleticism and buildup. So I would generally recommend doing it first and then the bench press as a secondary exercise. Now, if you compete in powerlifting, that's going to be reversed because bench press becomes a high priority. But here's the way you could structure it. You could do it exactly like you're talking about. Whichever one you feel is most important to your goals at the moment, probably the one you should do first. You should treat it as a primary exercise and treat the other as a secondary exercise or an accessory. Now, if you feel like you know that, say, the push press is more important, but you want your bench press to improve more, you could alternate days. You've got 2 different workouts to prioritize stuff. That's also a viable option. If you're really concerned that your bench press is lagging because of doing it after the push press, then you could come in and have days like, if, say, you're doing full body Monday and Thursday. You could come in Monday and do your push press first, and it could be your push press focused day, with the bench press being a little bit lighter than normal, maybe 10% lighter than your other day. And then Thursday you come in and bench press first and make it a primary exercise, and then the push press is a secondary. You might reduce the weight on it by 10% from your other day. And you could rotate through it that way. Those are kind of what your different options are, but ultimately what it comes down to is determining which is the most important for you. They work so many similar muscles that basically you're still just increasing metabolic fatigue. You're still stimulating growth in those muscles by doing a second exercise behind it. You just have to understand that the later exercises in any workout are going to have lower performance. So that doesn't mean that they aren't improving, and it doesn't mean that they are not stimulating new muscle growth and adaptation, and that's something people need to remember. Again, with training only 2 days a week, you really need to make sure any exercise that's really important to you, that you are doing it both days. So again, you just got to prioritize and figure out what you want. All right, next question. I'm not trying to kiss your ass. I noticed this last week, but a lot of fitness YouTubers don't change. They constantly talk about how they are lean and jacked and how their subscribers can be too. You seem to go through phases where your interests change. Previously, you were trying to get leaner when your focus was on powerlifting meets, and then it changed to helping Brittany, and now your emphasis is on being healthy. I think that makes your channel better because it gives me a wider range of information. Why do you think other fitness YouTubers don't change their goals or interest? You guys want to know the truth of the matter? Because I'm honest with my subscribers. That's what it comes down to. You know what? Because I've been doing this for years, I'm also middle-aged. My goals changed obviously through there. When I first got on here, I was training to compete again in powerlifting after being really, really sick for a long time, spending 10 months in bed. Doctor orders not to train. I had medical orders not to train. And contrary to a lot of rumors on the internet and whatever certain people might have said, I did get medical diagnosis. I do have medical records with my actual diagnosis of what I had and everything. They are in my actual medical records. I don't want to make my medical records public because that's my private information. But yeah, contrary to rumors on the internet, I do actually have multiple diagnoses from multiple doctors with my same medical issue. So second opinions actually giving the exact same diagnosis. They are in my medical records. But I wanted to get back into powerlifting, so obviously a lot of my information geared around that. I always had information for other people, and that's the thing. I've always tried to keep a wide variety of fitness-related topics, lifting, diet, and everything on here, even stuff that are not my personal goals, because the information is still useful to people. Even if I'm not doing something, the information is still useful. So yeah, I always try to do it that way, and obviously I change it as my goals change, what I personally am doing and some of what I focus on. But I always try to keep a variety of content. With a lot of other fitness YouTubers, I think they get stuck in their niche and they don't want to lose their current niche audience. And most of the time that niche is, I want to get jacked and ripped. Now, do you think these YouTubers really and truly are always that passionate long-term about that? No. They might not really be passionate about it anymore. But you know what? Their income and their living, and oftentimes we're talking about a 6-figure income. Again, I don't think people understand how much money people make off YouTube. They act like a lot of these guys who start to have nice things, they act like it's not their YouTube money paying for it. It actually is. Again, once you have a big outreach on YouTube, you make pretty good money doing it. Again, people don't understand that because maybe people have tried YouTube channels and they're only looking at the money they're making when they're under 50,000 subscribers. When you start going up, it starts getting a lot easier to make good money, particularly with regular content. But they have a niche audience. And because they're concerned about losing their audience, that big appeal that they have, yeah, they have to keep focusing on those goals. They might not really care about those goals personally anymore, but they care about making that money, and they care about keeping that audience. So they're going to keep up that appearance whether they even care about it anymore or not, because it's their job, their income depends on it. Just like you know, you might get into a certain career or field and find that you get making really good money, have a six-figure income, and lose your passion for that particular job. But you're going to keep up that outward appearance of doing it at your actual job to keep your boss happy, customers happy, whoever else you need to keep happy to keep that money coming in. YouTube is no different. And I think it's because a lot of the guys realize they have a niche audience. They're scared of losing it and they're scared of changing. And I think even sometimes, you know, Rich Piana gets stuck into that. That's why he has to be his over the top all the time. And he can't back down because he doesn't want to lose his audience who he has built up with that one singular message. But you know what? That's okay. That's different people's business models. I choose to use the model of just discussing the stuff that I want to discuss, keeping it varied, and just keeping with my own goals and not setting my personal goals based upon what I think I should be displaying on YouTube. That's just not relevant. My goals are always going to be my personal goals. But yeah, it does get reflected a bit on YouTube in the sense that I do care more about health and fitness and longevity and getting older and just staying strong and healthy and not giving a fuck about other things as far as fitness is related, purely because those aren't my interests. I'll still talk about them, but I'm obviously not passionate about them because they're not my personal goals. But yeah, it comes down to a lot of YouTubers being stuck in that because financially they can't really afford to change. Or they're scared of losing that outreach. And you know what? I don't think that's unreasonable given the specialized niche a lot of these guys have fallen into. They're probably right. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.